Joining us now to talk about the Senate races in the South, Republican strategist Ford O'Connell. Ford, thank you so much for being here with us again today via Skype on America's Forum.
Well, you know, you guys are my favorite, you and John. I'm always happy to spend time with you.
Well, we appreciate that, Ford, and we think for our part, Ford has a better idea. So, let's talk about what we're seeing in terms of the South, especially in my native state of North Carolina and in Arkansas. Now, let's take Arkansas first, because it is interesting to see what Republican Congressman Tom Cotton has done in terms of issuing a debate invitation to the incumbent David Pryor. But Ford, he's taken another step. He said, listen, we don't need to have a moderator. We don't need journalists. We just need each other on the stage and a Lincoln-Douglas debate format. Do you expect Mark Pryor to say, sure, I'll join you, Tom, and we'll go around Arkansas and have Lincoln-Douglas debates?
Absolutely not, JD. And the reason is because Mark Pryor is an incumbent. He's certainly on the ropes. You have to remember, incumbent senators over the last 10 years, they went in a 90% clip. So right now, Mark Pryor does not want to give an opening to Tom Cotton. This is a really tight race. It's gone back and forth by a couple of points. It's pretty baked in, and it's going to be tight till Election Day. I really like Tom Cotton's chances, but Mark Pryor knows that the worst thing he can do is give credibility to Cotton, and hence he's going to probably duck him all the way to Election Day.
As Senator Pryor, of course, his dad served in the seat before the current Senator Pryor, and I've always noticed the MO of the Pryor approach to politics usually to be very gracious, very flattering at times to their Arkansas constituents. But the current Senator Pryor, a real faux pas a few weeks ago, where he talked about preferential treatment in terms of military service, and that invited a look back at Senator Pryor's own resume and the fact that his dad preceded him in the United States Senate. To me, it's interesting that there wasn't more difficulties for Mark Pryor out of that kind of faux pas. Is it just because historically Arkansas, with the exception of the area up in the Ozarks, ironically around Fayetteville and the University of Arkansas, where John Paul Hammerschmidt served so many years in Congress, is it just that this state has had such a long-standing Democrat base through the years, being the land of Bill Clinton as well as the Pryor family?
Well, for Democrats in Arkansas, particularly in the last 10 years, what's happened here is those who've been sort of an institution, like the Pryors, have been able to get away with a few things that most candidates couldn't. Remember, these are the Pryors they know. And when you're in a state race, again, when it's a name you know and the name you've trusted over time, it always gives you an advantage. But really, Tom Cotton is looking, the Republican, is looking for any way to sort of dislodge Pryor, and Pryor's going to play a little bit of a cat and mouse game with him. I do like Tom's chances, but Tom definitely needs to get an opening, because one thing that's going in Tom Cotton's favor is the disapproval of President Obama. It's as high as 60%. And when I combine that with a generic ballot, I'm going to tell you, this is going to be a neck-and-neck knife fight all the way to November.
Well, we'll keep our eye on Arkansas. Now let's turn to my native North Carolina and a lively debate among the Republicans vying for that state's nomination to take on Kay Hagan, a debate outside Charlotte at Davidson College. As you take a look at the Republican field to try to displace the woman whose face we see on the screen right now, incumbent Senator Kay Hagan, how do you assess the GOP primary in the state of North Carolina?
Well, I think this is one of the best incumbent races we have to unseat. I will say this, Tom Tillis, in my opinion, is the best equipped to defeat Kay Hagan in the general election. But right now you have 5 folks running in the Republican primary, and the primary is on May 6th. And the question is does anyone get 40%? Right now, Tom Tillis is leading, but he's only pulling about 20-25%. If he doesn't get 40, he's going to have a runoff. And the question is, the rest of the candidates are a little bit more conservative, and does the votes of the other candidates coalesce when they actually have a runoff in July? I think this is heading to a primary runoff, and then we're going to see who emerges after that. But I do think overall, Tom Tillis gives the Republicans the best chance to beat Kay Hagan.
So, Ford, I know you're a political consultant, and you grace us with your wisdom free of charge, and we're grateful for that. If you were in the employee of the North Carolina Republican Party, given the dynamics of what is transpiring in the Tar Heel state, the situation you mentioned where it does not appear that anyone is going to get the required 40% at this juncture, it looks like a July runoff, then to face an incumbent U.S. Senator who happens to be a woman. What action can the North Carolina Republican Party take now to ensure unity following this rather contentious primary on the GOP side?
Well, they're going to have to remember what the ultimate goal is that is defeating Kay Hagan. And sometimes what happens when you have these contentious primaries that some people wind up, when their candidate doesn't win, they take their ball and go home. And you have to remember that at the end of the day, the goal is to be a check on President Obama, defeat Kay Hagan, and fire Harry Reid. You have to keep everyone's eyes on the prize with respect to what the ultimate goal is if your candidate doesn't win. And that's going to be very hard because when we go what's going to happen is the two candidates are going to wind up bleeding resources, which is really only going to benefit Kay Hagan. But right now it seems that everyone's focused on Thom Tillis. Kay Hagan's focused on Thom Tillis, and the other four candidates are focused on Thom Tillis. So right now Thom Tillis is taking fire from all sides.
And that's often the fate of a front runner in a race for a nomination. I speak from experience in that regard. Now, let's talk about Kay Hagan. She obviously defeated Liddy Dole 6 years ago. Kay Hagan, as a candidate and as an incumbent senator, despite the challenges she faces, she does have some resources. What will she be trying to do to hang on to this seat?
Basically, painting Republicans as obstructionists. The one thing that Republicans have a good way to paint her is the fact that President Obama won't pass the Keystone Pipeline. He won't make changes to Obamacare. And what the Republicans want to say is she has no influence in Washington, JD. So why do you keep her in power? Bring somebody new in there so we can shake this up and make the lives of North Carolinians better.
Ford O'Connell, another issue we'd like to talk about. It comes in a report from a website not exactly enamored with the GOP, BuzzFeed.com, reporting a, quote, epidemic of plagiarism going on in the GOP, saying that some candidates and office holders have been cutting and pasting from the Rand Paul playbook. BuzzFeed reporting that offenders include Senate, congressional, and state legislative candidates like David Clements, who's a Republican candidate for the Senate in New Mexico. His campaign has now said they regret any actions taken resulting in closely related content. And to be fair, let's take a look now at that closely related content. And what do you make of this? Because as we take a look at this question, Paul himself was accused of plagiarizing sections of his campaign speeches from Wikipedia. And you see here the similar statements right here. Is this something that will be a problem for Republicans, this charge of plagiarism in terms of these primaries?
Well, let's first look at the BuzzFeed article. It's a champagne liberal rag that essentially is trying to have a hit job on Rand Paul and basically saying, well, Rand Paul's a kook because his brand of radical libertarianism is entering the Republican Party, hence these other 8 candidates are kooks. We have to remember how the liberal left works here. Now, that said, I do think the deal is with a lot of these campaigns, JD, you know as a candidate, when you start out running a campaign, it's really a shoestring operation. They've obviously all hired the same set of web vendors, and essentially they didn't change it. They sort of got it up. They were box checkers, and now they should be, very cognizant of this. The one candidate that I would say stands out is Brannon in North Carolina because he's been cited 3 times for this. Because then at that point it goes to your credibility as a candidate and your ability to manage a larger operation. For some of these other candidates, there's a couple of state candidates, they actually plagiarized the entire Rand Paul 2010 Senate website on the issues. To me, that's just sloppy and it doesn't deserve my vote. But again, for someone like Brannon, who's in a higher profile position, he needs to be on top of this and change it because it does look sloppy and it leads credibility questions for candidates going forward.
Ford O'Connell, we appreciate your insights and we thank you very much. We should also note in closing that perhaps one of the top plagiarists, politically and otherwise, Joe Biden on the Democrat side, now serves as Vice President of the United States.
Well, why don't we ask BuzzFeed to look into that one?
Yeah, might want to take a look into that. Ford, we look forward to our next visit with you. and we thank you very much for the time. So what about plagiarism in politics? A surprise to you? We'd love to get your comments. Tweet us at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum. You can also reach us via email and Facebook. Stay with us.